In this podcast, we're going to look very briefly at Robert Zajonc and the work of Ledoux. Okay, so Joseph Ledoux, and it actually should be an E over there, not an A. Sorry about that. Okay, so you're not going to need to know too much about Zajonc's work. For the most part, I think the easiest thing to do is to kind of compare him with Lazarus. He's basically saying that cognition is not always needed in order for us to have an emotional experience. He basically says sometimes for us to actually interpret, the interpretation process is too slow for emotions to be necessarily always evolutionarily advantageous to us. We need to have quick, fast emotional responses and reactions to things sometimes. So basically his premise is this, right? Sometimes we experience emotion before we know what we think of a situation, before we're even consciously aware. And again, I'm giving you a little bit of comparison with Lazarus. So again, for Zajonc, it's the idea that cognitive appraisal does not have to happen first. In fact, it doesn't have to happen at all. So basically, we can respond to a physical threat before conscious action and cognition even enters the picture, right? So the person who's most connected to this from Zajonc, we get to Ledoux, and Ledoux talks about this low road. Okay, so he's working in conjunction with Zajonc, and basically he calls what Zajonc describes as, we have a stimuli and then an emotional response, and there's no cognition. He calls this low road, the low road to emotion. So what do we mean by the low road to emotion? All right, let's just take a step and look at this. Well, the high road would involve stimuli, and it would involve cognition. And really what it involves is that the thalamus, where all sensory stimuli except for taste and smell go, would actually send the information to different parts of the cortex, especially things like the frontal cortex, right? And that would help us produce emotion. Most high road views of emotion think that these may actually be better used to explain complex emotions like the love we might have for somebody, anything that has a level of complexity to it, not gut reactions or quick reactions. So low road is conscious awareness happens after, cognition might happen after we get the stimuli, and the stimuli gives rise to the emotional response, right? What Zajonc said. Remember, that was Zajonc's work. Okay, how does this happen? Well, the stimuli will obviously go to the thalamus, but instead of sending it to the cortex, the thalamus has a connection, and it really does have a very quick connection with the amygdala, which has been associated with processing fear. And that enables these low road, quick emotional responses, which enable us to survive. Okay, so you won't need to know too many of the details, but that's the high road and the low road, Zajonc and Ledoux in a nutshell.